As someone who has a very bad habit of only playing the most helmet of all helmet decks, I recently have started playing Paleozoic Frogs, and for the most part I really enjoy the deck. I like it. There's a lot of really cool things you can do, and just being able to flood your opponent out with infinite toad negates is really fun. But while this deck does have a fairly high ceiling in terms of how many negates it can produce a turn, especially considering that you sit on a bunch of floodgates to back your toad up, there are some problems with the deck. Consistency-wise, if you open Swap Frog versus if you don't open Swap Frog, there's a large differentiation between your opening board with a Swap Frog and a Water Monster versus your opening board without a Swap Frog and another Water Monster, or even just a Swap Frog. Now, Konami has just recently announced a new frog that came out, actually I believe it came out today. It's called Doublecross Frog. Now, Doublecross Frog has an effect that reads, cannot be used as material for a fusion, synchro, XYZ, or link summon. Now, off the bat, this is already a really bad effect, given that mostly what you'd be using this card for is essentially summoning a toad. So already that's a very harsh restriction, I think. So it's already not looking good.
If this card is normal or flip summon, change it to defense position. Well, okay. Once per turn, if this card is in face-up defense position, you can target one monster your opponent controls in a main monster zone, switch control of this card to your opponent in a monster zone next to the targeted monster. Then, if your opponent has exactly 2 Doublecross Frog in the main monster zones, take control of all monsters your opponent controls in the zones between them. Okay, so given that effect, you might be asking yourself how this actually helps frogs be more competitive or helps them be more efficient at what they do. And the answer to both of those questions is that it really doesn't. This doesn't really help you accomplish anything. Your end goal in Paleozoic Frogs is to essentially open up with a Swap Frog and another Frog monster, make a totally awesome, set back row, and be able to negate your opponent constantly until they run out of cards. This does not enable that strategy whatsoever, and that is kind of the most viable strategy Paleozoic Frogs have, other than going second and using evenly matched, which that's not even an optimal situation. So this card doesn't really advance Paleozoic Frog's game state in any which way, to be honest. The only use that I could possibly think of for this card would be to discard it off of Swap Frog, to then send a Rodent Totem, banish this card and summon the Rodent Totem, and then make it totally awesome and set back row. But that isn't really using this card other than the fact that it's a frog. So to me, this card just doesn't really have that much of a viable effect. It doesn't make Paleozoic Frogs any better going second, and it doesn't really make them any more consistent. For these reasons, I cannot honestly see this card being played in any Paleozoic list going forward, but I don't know. Let me get your guys' thoughts in the comments section below. It's me, it's that DMD, and your boy is out.